Welcome back to another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast, World Series Edition. Corey, Jason, Dylan, Mel, all acting happy. John Pauline, Ben Mandel. Guys, it's been another week, and one of our teams are still in the race. We started at 3, went to 2. Now there's only one of us, or 2 of us really, standing. Yankees will advance to the World Series. The Dodgers knocked out the OMG Mets. The Dodgers will face them in the World Series. First time since 1981, 13th time ever, the most common World Series matchup in the sports history. The two of the 3 biggest payrolls, the 2 biggest markets, Ohtani, Judge, USA, Japan. This is everything Major League Baseball could have wanted and more. But before we talk about the final series of the year, let's talk about what led us here. And I do want to start off with the Yankees because they were dead in the water to some people in July. What saved them was every other team in baseball was also really bad for that month-long stretch that they had, whether it's the Phillies, the Orioles, the Dodgers, Cleveland. Every team struggled at like the same time, and it really kept the Yankees and, all these other teams in the race. So the Yankees won the pennant, their 41st World Series triple eights, first time going to the World Series since 2009. It's 15 years. I was 11 years old last time they won the World Series. It was a long time coming. I didn't get to appreciate it as much as I can now. It was a feeling that, Ben, you remember it in 2015. John, you remember it not too long ago right? What was it 2 years ago? Red October.
That was great.
It's so hard to explain watching your team advance, win the pennant. It's a lot of emotions rushing up to you. Dylan, how did you feel watching Soto catch that final out?
Yeah, I think it started at the Soto homer, and obviously nothing is official in sports, and there's no guaranteed win or anything of the sorts, but it felt like when he hit that 3-run shot in the top of the 10th to go up 5-2, it was over. Like, that was the moment that I was like, we're going to the World Series. It was poetic that he caught the out, but like you said, 2009, I have like very faint memories of. I remember like one of the games was on Halloween and I was trick-or-treating and then came back to watch the game. But this is completely different, way more appreciative of the journey, and it makes the Soto deal all the worth it to just even be there, and especially if you win it, because it's a 1-year rental before the guy hits the market, but this is success that the Yankees haven't seen in 15 years.
Yeah, they were never able to get past the Astros. Before that, the Tigers, the Rangers. The Yankees, though, haven't beaten a non-AL Central team in the playoffs since 2012. Every playoff series win since then was the Twins, the Guardians, the Royals. That's pretty much it.
The Central keeps making it. That's
they do.
They keep playing the Yankees.
Play who's in front of you, right?
Yeah,
well, you can't penalize the Yankees for the fact that they played the opponents that they did. At the same time, I'm not sitting here taking anything away from the Yankees, but the Dodgers 100% are a more battle-tested team coming into this because of who they had to play versus the Yankees. You can argue that
would have been the case no matter the path, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Like, even if the Yankees had Orioles, Astros, I would still say Padres, Mets was more challenging.
Just because I think the Padres matched up so well with the Dodgers. The Mets were the hottest team, felt like that team of destiny. I don't think
but at the same time, like I'm not all I'm saying is, Baltimore was one of those teams that fell off at the end. If they kept up what they were doing and were the true, A to the Yankee, or 1B to the Yankees, 1A in the AL East, like, by the way that they fell off, they weren't the same team. That's why Kansas City was able to get past them. And the same reason why Detroit was able to get past Houston, because Houston wasn't what Houston had been in the past. If Houston was what they were in the past and Baltimore was what they were at the beginning of the season, yeah, you know what? The Yankees' path to the World Series would have been significantly harder. It may not have been as hard as the Dodgers, but it definitely wouldn't have been as easy as it was. And I'm not trying to say that it was easy for them, but at the same time, it wasn't
they had
exactly
2
the path of
losses.
most resistance.
Well, yeah, they had 2 losses. I wouldn't say that, while the games themselves were competitive, there was no holy crap, if we lose this game, our season's over moment for the Yankees.
Well, in 2015, the Mets went to the World Series and only lost 2 games in the National League side of the bracket as well. But at the same time, it's not completely indicative of what the competition is and how many games you lose, because look, those games in Cleveland, all of them were close. I got to give Cleveland a lot of credit, because I said that they were more dead in the water than they actually were. They did make a series out of it, and I do give the Yankees a lot of credit for going on the road and winning those games. The only thing is I feel like the Yankees are a better road team than they are at home.
They are. They have the best road record in baseball, and they also have the best record against teams with a winning record in baseball, which I don't know how much stake you put into that, if it bodes well for them or not, but it's definitely something to kind of keep an eye out for. But the Yankees did beat Cleveland in 5. Stanton was the ALCS MVP. That Stanton, man.
Playoff Stanton.
Playoff Stanton is real, and he will hurt you. I've been a Stanton defender since forever. I've been a big Stanton fan, but I just never thought he was going to do this. 4 hits and 18 at-bats, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 3 walks. Does it seem like he hit 222 in this series to you?
No, but it does seem like every hit that he had was a home run, so I guess it kind of makes sense.
But every hit was big, whether it was going back-to-back with Judge off of Class A to take the lead, whether it was tying the game up in Game 5 with that 2-run shot. Just everything this man does. He has 8 career hits in the postseason versus Cleveland. All 8 are home runs. This man, all he does is launch missiles into the seats. And the team he hits best against in his career has been the Dodgers. He has phenomenal numbers versus the Dodgers. Grew up going to Dodger games as a kid. That connection there. I think Stanton, if he can stay hot, has cemented his legacy, as an all-time Yankee postseason great.
Yeah.
A modern-day Mr. October type performance.
Judge also has really good numbers against the Dodgers, for what that's worth.
Yes, he does. I wonder how that wall padding is going to be. I know we're going to see that video of him breaking his toe 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
But I wonder who Ippei Mizuhara is rooting for this series.
I do want to, on the topic of the ALCS, Soto was fantastic. Stanton was fantastic. Glaber was fantastic in that leadoff spot. It felt like him and Soto got on base every first inning. I thought Volpe played really well. I think he had the highest batting average on the team or something close to it.
Yeah, he did.
Weaver was good. I really liked what I saw out of Carlos Rodon. If we can get that level Rodon, and I know we're going to preview the World Series, but this was when the Yankees signed Rodon. We came up here, we had this conversation. For playoff baseball, you are built to have the best starting rotation in the league, with Cole 1 and Rodon, who was coming off of a Cy Young when the Yankees signed him 2. Figure it out with the rest. But that Rodon is a game changer. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, Rodon pitched great. Cole, game 1 was fantastic. His first game pitching was a game 2. Then he struggled a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, it was an okay game versus Cleveland. He was much better versus Kansas City, but Cleveland, they're the kind of team that, we called them the Cleveland Bloops a couple of years ago. They're really good at defense and getting contact and, playing playing the right way, playing gritty. Like that is what these Central teams are really good at.
Like Rocchio made his name good and
Yeah.
bad on the national stage.
Rocchio, I mean, my goodness. Talk about someone who was supposed to be an elite defender for your team letting you down. He made, off the top of my head, 4 key errors in big spots. I
He
mean,
did.
that can't happen.
And that's something that we've seen Gleyber Torres do a million times. And on top of that, you have base running, which they both share. That double play with Oswaldo in the 10th inning, where there was a ground ball to first. Oswaldo Cabrera, who was pinch running for Rizzo, stepped on first. And then instead of throwing to second, Rocchio turned back and ran right into the tag.
Yeah, I like that just made I didn't
Oh.
understand that
I
at all.
was so lost when that happened.
I
I was like, did he catch it? I was like, I thought it was a ground ball. Did he catch it? Why is he
made
turning
sense
around?
what he was trying to do? It made sense. He just executed it so poorly.
I disagree. I don't think it made sense at all. If
I mean-
he knew that ball was on the ground, there's no reason to turn around, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, if the throw goes to second and you turned around at the right time, you get back to first easily because there's no more force since they tag first. You save it out, you save a runner, you live to fight another day, and you don't have to risk a pretty easy double play. He just executed it horrifically. He turned around before the throw was even made. Good on Cabrera learning a new position and knowing not to throw it right away and catching the runner doing that. But then on the flip side, you had a base running gaff in a way by Gleyber Torres to start the game, where he was trying to score from first on a Soto double.
No, I disagree that that's a gaff on Gleyber.
Hear me out. The reason why I'm putting it on Gleyber and not the send is because instead of running hard to home, as he rounded third, he was watching the ball. He wasn't running home. He slowed down to watch the ball. And he would have been safe if he actually ran right home.
No, I disagree. I think that I don't think that's on anybody on the Yankees, really. I think it was a perfect relay from one of the best defensive second basemen in Jimenez in the league. And, when you play the Guardians, what did I just say? They are a great defensive team. They're going to get those things against you from time to time. I don't think that's anybody's fault. I think that was just Gleyber's not fast enough. But it's not like the guy was expected.
If he didn't, slow down to watch the relay come in.
Agree to disagree, but I'm not going to argue with you about a ALCS victory.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, but I kind of want to go through that final Soto home run. John, what were you thinking when you saw that one?
Yeah, I'll tell you what John was thinking. Please come to Philadelphia.
That was just a masterclass at bat.
He's just so good. Like when you watch him at bat, like it's almost like an art form watching him take at bats. Like he has such a good feel for the strike zone and stuff, and he just works it so he gets a pitch that he can hit it, do damage to like that. I mean, it's crazy.
It really is.
He is a psychopath, and I mean that in the best way possible. The fact that he just stares down the opposing pitcher in between getting strikes, balls, looks at them, shakes his head off, the shuffle, the fact, that wasn't don't get me wrong. The pitch is not where the catcher wanted it. The catcher wanted it unhittable. But that's not exactly some whiff of a pitch. He's painting the top of the strike zone. It's just Juan Soto's that freaking dude.
He is. Every team should be in on him. Every team should want him, and he should never leave the Yankees.
Yeah.
How do you watch him do that and then let him go anywhere else? How do you not give him $1 billion if that's what it takes? Because you will make that back and more with what he'll bring to your team and the fan base.
It feels like the attitude Met fans had towards Yoenis Cespedes.
I can definitely.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that they're the same player because obviously they're not. But at the same time, that is 100% the Met fan attitude when Yoenis Cespedes came into town.
Yeah, no, for sure I could see that. The only thing is, and obviously we'll talk about free agency in the future, but I just think that the Yankees will do whatever it takes to pay Soto and will cut corners elsewhere. well, we paid Soto. We don't need to pay Glaber. We'll just start Oswaldo at second. Like, that'll be where that goes for the Yankees. I don't see them going, well, we can't afford Soto. I feel like it's definitely going to be, well, we paid Soto, so we can't afford anybody else.
And I'm totally okay with that.
like that is the better way for things to go. Well, we had to pay Glaber, so Soto had to walk. Like that. That's not what I want to hear.
I mean, and that's fine because the only other player outside of Glaber that the Yankees really have to pay would be Clay Holmes. And I don't think you can find a Yankee fan that wants to pay him at all.
I don't know if you could find a team that's going to want to pay him. I mean, you're
I
not
think
paying him
some
to be a
team will pay him.
closer.
I think some team will.
Teams will pay for a pitcher.
But there is one pitcher I would like to see the Yankees give an extension to. Not a big one, but add another maybe 2 years at a team-friendly rate. And that's Luke Weaver. They have a team option.
I love
for
how you
next year.
added at a team friendly rate. And I don't know if he's going to be the closer. It could be fine at a player friendly rate.
It's been 6 weeks.
Hey,
It's 6
listen,
weeks.
you say that now. If in 2 weeks' time Luke Weaver just closed out Game 6 of the World Series, I don't
Give him
care.
Soto
I
money.
don't care. I don't care how long it's been. That's enough time has passed to pay him.
Give him Soto money at that point. But what the Yankees have done with their bullpen, Jake Cousins, Mark Leiter Jr., Tim Hill was DFA'd by the White Sox for not being good enough. The White Sox. I mean, Luke Weaver was a throw-in trash heap pickup last year that the Yankees turned into, an elite closer, a jungle cat. Just the way they've built their bullpen, getting outs from so many different guys. And I think that's how bullpens are kind of turning into now, where if you have a good pitching coach, a good organizational philosophy on pitching and what you want, you don't need to pay closers and these relievers big money.
Yeah.
The best way to go about it is find failed starters and different arm slot guys and turn them into multi-inning arms. Because that's the one thing that the Yankees the last 15 years didn't have that they have now is every single reliever on that roster is capable of going more than 3 outs.
And
Like
I want to say this postseason, I think Aaron Boone has managed the bullpen very well.
Yes.
And we have texted extensively during Yankee games the last years. And we've had a lot of problems with Boone at times. And we were texting during Game 5, and it was a tie game, obviously. And going into the 9th, we saw Meza warming up, and I texted you and said, he can't be serious. And then he throws Weaver out there, and he lets Weaver go again. And I was like, this is a guy who understands the seriousness of the situation and that every playoff game is must win. And the whole team has that mentality. And what I love the most is there's still a job not finished mentality. Giancarlo wins the ALCS MVP, and he says, this trophy's nice, but it's not the one I want. And then it just keeps him moving. He goes, we'll celebrate tonight, back to work tomorrow. And I'm like, perfect.
It's right there in front of us.
Yep.
It's right there in front of us. The way Boone handled it, I think it was getting a little dicey around Game 3 with a lot of overexposure. You were throwing Weaver a lot. You were throwing Holmes a lot. But overexposure theory, I think, has been brought to the forefront of a lot of fans' minds this postseason because there's so many dominant bullpens, whether it's Cleveland or the Yankees, the Mets, who had some really good arms in Diaz and Stanek, the Dodgers. When you see a reliever for the 3rd time in a series, teams are hitting close to 300, I believe.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that and the way Boone handled it, you want to give your relievers a day off. That he gave Weaver Game 4 off, which was completely necessary. Not that Weaver was losing his stuff, but it gave him some separation between being seen by Cleveland. Tim Hill did pitch in all 5 games, but Clay Holmes pitched in 4 and was totally spent. They saw his pitches. They saw this pitch shape. Not that his velocity dipped or his location was hurt, but they saw it just like how the Yankees saw Gaddis. That's how Soto knew that fastball was going to come.
Yep.
It's how Stanton was able to hit the home runs. When you see these pitchers multiple times, you're able to hit the ball, know what type of sequence they want to throw. The first couple times, the pitcher has that edge. But when you know how they're going to attack you, you're able to get out in front of that. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see in the World Series because the Dodgers only have 3 starting pitchers, and they're going to end up using a bullpen game at some point because they don't have a pitcher they can trust to throw 3 games in a series.
Yeah, and Roberts, to his credit, in the NLCS, I thought managed who was seeing who pretty well because
Yeah.
he knew that was a big factor. So don't be shocked if he does the same thing to New York.
Well, speaking of the Dodgers and the NLCS, they did beat the Mets in 6. It was a great run. Tommy Edman, NLCS MVP. He hit 407 in that series, 11 hits, 11 RBIs, got hit in all 6 games. Ben, I'm going to give you the floor. Run us through the highs and lows of this, how you felt, because the Mets were dead in the water in May. Everybody wrote them off. And then they came, 2 wins away from going to the World Series. They gave the Dodgers a fight. They went further than anybody would have expected. In Carlos Mendoza's first year, giving him credit for keeping this team together. How do you feel? Was it a success?
Yeah, look, at the grand scheme of things with where this season was, with how dead in the water this team was, yes, this ended up being a success. If you told me in the middle of June, heck, even in July, that this team was going to be 2 wins away from reaching a World Series, I honestly would have asked you what you were smoking and to share because I want to feel what you're feeling because it really is – it's insane what they were able to do and accomplish in the way that they did it. The emotions just make you more excited for next year. And you just have to hope that this is the beginning for this group. And that's why, it's important, to keep guys like Alonso. It's important to try and keep key members of this group together because obviously, you got to decide who needs to stay, who needs to go. And, ultimately this series, it was a lot of ups and downs. Game 2 was a lot of fun, especially because you were going back home. You did what you needed to do. But I said Game 4 from the jump was going to be the most pivotal game in the series. Quintana, a guy who throws a lot of pitches out of the strike zone, and the Dodgers, a team that doesn't chase. And, I knew they would win one of games 3 and 5. Game 4 needed to be one that the Mets won with it being a lefty on the mound for the Dodgers. For the Mets, rather, against this Dodger lineup that's very lefty heavy. And ultimately, it just wasn't, they weren't able to get it done. And, it is what it is. But, I think they'll be a team that's set up more for the future. I think Stearns has done a great job with this group and building a team that is deep and has a good roster. They were finding starting pitchers, gems, diamonds in the rough, really. And, I have faith that it's going to continue trending in the right direction because let's be honest, after 23, you really didn't know what to expect with this Mets team. Scherzer wanted out because apparently they weren't competing until 26, but that's clearly not the case. And, at the end of the day, I gave Dave Roberts a lot of crap a couple of weeks ago. And he showed up. He got it done for the Dodgers. So at the end of the day, you got to give credit where credit's due. I don't think he really needed to manage too much against this Mets team because they were able to jump out to such big leads. But at the end of the day, Dodgers won. They got it done. So you tip your cap and hope for a good World Series.
On the Mets note, man, you got to be real excited about the future with Mark Vientos, 24 years old, and in the brightest lights, the guy came through time and time again. If I'm a Mets fan, that's my biggest takeaway.
Well, and I think, you could be extremely excited about it because this is what you were expecting out of Brett Beatty. And how often do you get a failed prospect at a position and immediately have another prospect right there to step in at that same position to move forward? And, look, Vientos is a guy who actually played first base a lot in the minors, so that's something to look for if the Mets are not able to re-sign Alonso. One of the routes that I have heard them going is, rather than putting the money into Alonso, whether they want to, whether they're not able to, you bump Vientos to first base, and Alex Bregman. No, Alex Bregman is apparently a name that they're looking for if they're not able to sign Juan Soto.
When they're not able to sign Juan Soto.
I'd say if it's a 2-team race, there's 2 teams that are going to be able to give him the money because the Dodgers just simply won't want to.
Yeah.
Soto's whole case was that he's always wanted the East Coast and specifically New York.
Well, and the thing is a lot of Soto has wanted the Mets over the Yankees in the past.
Because he was the only one family that was a Met fan.
And the thing with Soto is he always wanted the Mets. He's traded to the Yankees, though. That's the team that went out to get him, that showed more that they wanted him. So, I really do think that it would be tough for the Mets realistically to pry him away. But I think that Steve Cohen's going to really open the checkbook.
Yeah, I think the Steinbrenners and Cohen are going to go into a bidding war. I wonder what type of gentleman-like agreement they come to, because the Mets refuse to go after Judge. And if the Yankees win with Soto, or quite frankly, even if they don't win with Soto, Soto's going to want to stay, I think. He's loved in that locker room. The fans love him. He loves the roll call in right field. He's loved every second of being a Yankee. That if the money's even close, I think he chooses. But if the Mets blow him out of the water or are significantly higher, he's going to ultimately choose the most money, as he should.
Yeah. You hear it. Even in Cleveland, when they were celebrating the ALCS, re-signed Soto chants going crazy. Cashman had to pause. Somebody said that Brian Cashman, that moment he realized exactly how much money. You heard Jazz in the locker room too.
Stanton.
$700 million. The whole team is behind it. The thing for me, and we can have all offseason to talk about it, but if the Yankees don't blow Soto away with an offer, not only do you lose Soto, but how much of that locker room do you lose by just showing them that win or lose the World Series, you didn't have enough care to put the money in for them to go back to it?
Yeah, 100%. But now that we're kind of getting into that World Series, we'll talk more about the Mets offseason plan, once we get there. But it is Yankees-Dodgers. 2 biggest markets, the 2 biggest teams. This is what they've always wanted. We've been hearing for years, Yankees-Dodgers, Yankee-Dodgers. Side note, how much of a programming home run is it for Fox to have Game 1 of the World Series between the Yankees and Dodgers, followed by Big Ten After Dark, Rutgers, USC? You get to keep those same markets. Now, Rutgers sucks, but they planned this months ago, back in March, when they were building this football schedule, that they wanted to have at least one of those teams play, that you can keep that audience in for that big football game.
What a snipe job.
Right? Just trying to pick out the football schedule. You pick 2 teams, hoping to get one of those markets, and you end up getting both of them back to back. That's a pretty crazy coincidence for their programming director.
I've seen a lot of complaints on Twitter about this World Series, and my response as a Yankee fan, as a baseball fan, is shut up. Okay? How often in baseball do you really get the Clash of the Titans World Series? It almost never happens. You could argue Astros, Dodgers, but that was like COVID year, and it's like,
2018, I believe, was the last time 2 of the top 5 payrolls played each other in the World Series.
But these are the 2 1 seeds, the 2 MVP candidates, the 2 best players in the world, 2 of the top 3 payrolls. You have Soto and Betts as secondary stars on these teams. This is going to break records for viewership. I mean, it was guaranteed to break records for viewership, if I'm being honest, with just Ohtani in it because of how much viewership Japan's going to give you. But you have the number one team and the number two team, market-wise and popularity-wise. Like, enjoy this. This is Lakers Celtics if they met in the finals this year in terms of just popularity.
I mean, the last time you had two MVPs play each other was 2012, Miggy and Posey. Now you have Judge and Soto, who are both almost assuredly going to win the MVP.
Well, Judge and Ohtani, I appreciate your love for Soto, but
Did I say Soto?
yeah.
Judge and Ohtani, who are going to win the MVP, not Soto. That'll be next year when he's with the Yankees and wins the MVP. The last time you had two one seeds play each other, 2020. That's COVID shortened year. Tampa Bay.
Do you know before then or no?
I could look it up, but that was the most
fine.
recent time. And then the last time you had the number one seed with an MVP play a number one seed with the MVP was 1976. Thurman Munson and the Yankees and Joe Morgan and the Reds. This doesn't happen often. The last time the Dodgers and Yankees played each other in the World Series was 1981. That was a long time ago. This is the most common World Series. Again, this is their 13th meeting.
But that's because that was back when pennants just meant you went you win the pennant in the regular season, you go to the World Series.
But this is kind of how it is though too. They're both the number one seeds. They both would have won the pennant and made it.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. I just meant in terms of why it's so common. It's not common in recent history by any means.
It's tough to win the World Series. It's tough to even get there. We've seen the heartbreak from all of our teams over the last 2 decades of us watching these games. So the fact that we're here now is pretty incredible. This is everything Rob Manfred would have wanted. All the owners, not even the fans, want it. But the one argument that I keep seeing that kind of annoys me is people upset about the payroll thing. Because they're saying, a lot of people are saying now that they need a salary cap, that you can just buy a World Series because Ohtani, Betts, Soto,
look at last year's World Series,
Cole. Right. Look at
like
last year. That all these guys didn't start on these teams, that they were poached from another team.
I am so tired of this freaking argument, man.
When the Cleveland
at the end of the day, if you are upset about the fact that people are paying teams can buy World Series, whatever, there is nothing stopping other teams from spending money on their payroll.
Except their cheap ownership.
Exactly.
The Guardians owner is worth $1 billion more than the Yankees ownership group. Yeah. Tell your owner to start paying some money to guys not named Jose Ramirez.
There's no such thing as a small market.
Yeah, these small market teams act like they don't have money to spend, when in reality, their owners just use their teams as cash cows.
What do they do? The profit sharing or whatever?
Well, the revenue sharing.
The revenue share. That's
want to increase that, which is fine. But all these teams, Baltimore, Tampa, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Pirates, the A's, they all cry poor. And if your owner isn't capable of paying these contracts, keeping your stars, if your city isn't doing everything they can to keep them, that's on you. That's not on the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Mets or the Red Sox or these teams that always seem to be in on these big free agents. These owners need to start paying, and if you can't, sell the team. The owners should force other owners to sell the team to keep it competitive, because a cap kind of hurts the sport. A floor is fine, but you can't have one without the other. So the way they're operating now, makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a capitalistic market. If you're not going to spend the money, get out.
And luckily, the MLBPA is the strongest union out of all the 4 major sports. So you'll never have to really worry.
Yeah, and they're never getting rid of that. Because it's money to the players or to the billionaire owners. Take your pick. Like when Juan Soto gets $700 million this offseason from the Yankees or the Mets or whoever it is, and people are mad about it, the choice was Juan Soto gets that money, or the Mets and Yankees owners keep it and continue to be billionaires. Like, the money was going to be there regardless.
I'm hearing a lot of Phillies fans right now. They're really mad, and they're actually the ones who are calling for a salary cap because they feel it is unfair that the Mets and Yankees are the only two teams that are going to be able to pay Juan Soto, when in reality, the Mets and Yankees are the only two teams whose owners are willing to pay Juan Soto.
And if we saw anything with Otani's contract, anybody could just give like an Otani contract out if you could just pay it out over 40 years.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's not like the Phillies have recklessly spent on Harper, Castellanos, Wheeler.
I mean, they gave so much money out.
Well, and I was going to say,
Turner.
the Phillies turn around, like, they would be one of the teams affected by a salary cap. I don't think people realize.
Yeah, like they don't have a cheap. They don't have a cheap payroll.
I mean, the Padres went out and paid Tatis, Machado, just what is it? Hosmer they paid at one point. Darvish. They tried to give Judge $400 million.
And this is only going to be a conversation because of the two teams in the World Series.
Absolutely.
Last year, it was Rangers and Diamondbacks, and nobody had a word to say. Guess who was still the highest paid teams? The Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees.
Well, and the Rangers' payroll, by the way, was very high last season as well. The Rangers, I believe, this is right after they went and got Seager and Semi in the year before, and they just went and paid DeGrom and then traded for Scherzer.
Yeah, so but the Diamondbacks was low. Like, my point is you can get in with high or low payroll.
Well, exactly, but those low payroll teams are mad because they feel like as soon as they build a team, those guys are walking to the high spenders. But at the same time, if you just pay your players, it's not a problem. Atlanta's not a huge market team. They paid all their players.
But also paying like for all these big players doesn't guarantee a trip to the World Series either. Like, it's not like an automatic free walk.
Well, and that's the thing. You look at Atlanta. Atlanta paid all their guys. They're not going to the World Series every year.
Yeah, and in terms of small market, I mean, give me a break. It's not like Cleveland is, mountaintop Pennsylvania by any means. Like, this is a massive city still.
It's just a ridiculous argument. So, what I do want to do, though, is kind of go through the Yankees and Dodgers starting lineups, their roster, and just kind of talk about which team is better in each spot, so we can kind of see what we're dealing with and break it down. So, and Ben, since you watched the Mets play the Dodgers, correct me if I'm mistaken on some of the starters or who the anticipated starters are, since you most recently watched them the most.
Yeah, if you want, I can kind of give you the Dodgers readout, or like for each one if you're like talking.
Right.
Like, I can kind of give the Dodgers side while you give the Yankees side, because I've seen more of the Dodgers, and obviously with the Mets playing them, you're reading up a little bit more on them.
Right. So we'll start with catcher. That's a pretty easy one. That's Will Smith on the Dodgers side and Austin Wells on the Yankees side. Now, Wells has struggled at the plate. Defensively, he's been pretty solid. He's somebody with a lot of potential. Where do you guys lean? Which side is kind of better?
Will Smith.
Yeah, if you're going, I mean, with the bat alone, it's going to be Will Smith. This time of the year, defense is big, but you can, if you get 2 home runs out of your catcher in the World Series, that's just a huge advantage, especially because, to be honest with you, I don't see Wells giving. Be
lucky if we get 2 hits out of Austin Wells in the World Series.
Yeah, so I got definitely the Will Smith.
I have faith in Wells for the future, but the bright lights on the young player have really shown.
Yeah, hats off to the Mets scoreboard team, by the way, because I don't know if you guys noticed because they put like funny messages underneath each of the opposing players, and for Will Smith, they put not a slap hitter. Will Smith at the Oscars.
Yes, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I was missing the joke there.
Yeah, right over your heads. Come on. But
I got it. It's a little outdated.
It's a different Will Smith joke that we've gotten for the baseball guy, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, also this is the 5th straight year that Will Smith is in the World Series. That the pitcher Will Smith was in the last 4.
Yeah, we won't have Will Smith on Will Smith crime in this one though.
But first base now, you have Freddie Freeman / Max Muncy versus Anthony Rizzo.
Give me the Freeman Muncy side.
Freeman doesn't look like he's able to move.
No, I understand. I mean, even if it was just Muncy, I would take just Muncy over Rizzo. I like
think
Rizzo.
Rizzo's
I'm not saying it's like a wide margin, but that's where I would lean.
The thing is Freddie Freeman is still hitting 300. So, yeah, he can barely move, but at the same time, he is still producing. It's not like Brandon Nimmo on the other side who couldn't move, and he's sitting there with 2 hits in the series. Like, Freddie Freeman is still hitting over 300. He's still producing for the Dodgers.
Rizzo's hitting 429.
And look, that's I think defensively, that's where you're going to see the difference. Anthony Rizzo is going to be able to provide better defense than what the Dodgers are going to have at that position, whether it's Freeman or Muncy. I think we saw some deficiencies with Muncy there at first base in that Mets series. So, to be honest with you, I'm leaning toward Rizzo just because it's not a healthy Freddie Freeman. But, if Freeman's healthy, it definitely is a different story.
Right, but he's not.
He's not. I'm going to Rizzo.
I'm also going Rizzo. Dylan, you're still leaning Freeman Muncy?
Yeah, I mean, I still would just because of what their bats bring. I think it's close, but, I would love to see Anthony Rizzo continue to bat 429. My guess is he doesn't, but prove me wrong, Rizzo.
And then which side do you pick, John?
I like the Freeman Muncy. I just like Freeman's like upside in the playoffs here compared to Rizzo's just so much more even if he is hurt. Like Dylan said, like his bat.
So then second base, I believe we have Gleyber Torres and Gavin Lux. And I feel like you have to go Gleyber on this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what Glaber's been producing, just even in terms of on-base percentage, his at-bats at the top of the lineup have just been really, really fantastic for the Yankees. And I'm really interested to see in this series because they've struggled to do it so far. But if Gleyber and Soto can get on, how much does the 3, 4, 5 in the Yankees lineup finally start to eat off of that or what? But Glaber's been a great table setter, not a single defensive, from Gleyber, so knock on wood there for that, but Glaber's been really, really solid.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to change your guys' opinion. It actually, with Pages breaking out a little bit for the Dodgers in center field, it has been Kike Hernandez playing second base.
I mean, I still think Gleyber gets the edge.
I still lean Gleyber, but I like Kike.
Kike he's one of those guys who is a playoff performer. You definitely can't doubt that. Just kind of what the Dodgers will do right now. If Lux plays second base, you'll have Kike Hernandez in center field. Another guy that they have thrown out at second base who has been dreadful is Chris Taylor. They'll do Chris Taylor at second base or maybe sometimes even at third base.
Yeah, so, and he hasn't shown it, but Gleyber has some pop in his bat too. We haven't seen him go yard yet, but that ability is certainly there.
Yeah, for me, I am actually going to lean this over towards Kike Hernandez strictly off an experience standpoint. This is a guy who is just a playoff killer for the last 10 years. I remember watching the 2015 NLDS between the Mets and Dodgers and watching Kike Hernandez just kind of break out and think to myself, who the hell is this guy? He is garbage. Why is this guy tormenting us right now? And, thinking that he's going to just fade. And all of a sudden, it's 10 years later and Kike Hernandez is still doing it. So I'm going Kike Hernandez over Gleyber Torres in this one. I'm giving the Dodgers the edge.
Is it a slight edge or a major edge?
Slight edge, especially considering the fact that, we will see Gavin Lux sprinkled in there. We will see Chris Taylor sprinkled in the lineup somewhere. Dave Roberts has not been shy about, changing up his lineup. He's not going to roll the same lineup out there day in and day out. But, once we get into the pitching standpoint of this a little bit more, then, I'll have a bit more information there.
So now we go shortstop, Tommy Edman, the trade deadline acquisition versus homegrown star Anthony Volpe. I mean, Edman was the NLCS MVP.
Yeah, it's hard not to roll Edmund with the way he's been batting. Obviously, every series is a new series, and just straight up, if I had to pick a player, I would take Anthony Volpe, but that's not exactly always how playoff baseball works. I kind of want to call this a draw because while Edmund did win the NLCS and had all those RBIs, Anthony Volpe led the Yankees in terms of batting average and took really, really quality at bats. The defense is, decent, but sometimes little hiccups. But I kind of lean draw if you'll allow draw.
I mean, I marked down Freeman Rizzo as a draw because we were split there. So,
Hey, look, I am on the fence of Edmund here. I think Volpe's a nice player and everything, but Tommy Edmund is very strong with the bat. I think he is a bit more consistent with the bat when it comes to that. And to be quite honest with you, I think he's just at this point in their careers a bit more complete. I think if you ask this question 2 or 3 years down the road, we might have different answers. But as of right now, where it stands, I lean towards Tommy Edman.
now, third base, Yankees have Jazz. It seems like the Dodgers don't have a consistent third baseman, if what I'm reading is right. Is it Muncy, Hernandez?
It's Muncy. You'll see Chris Taylor in there if Freddie Freeman's out, because then Muncy's playing first base. So Max Muncy and Chris Taylor would be your combination there at third base. We saw Chris Taylor was actually playing second base, and I believe Kike Hernandez ended up at third base in that game. But essentially, if Max Muncy is not playing third base, that means Chris Taylor is in the game likely, or Gavin Lux, because Gavin Lux at this point has basically been benched, it seems.
I mean, I feel like we have to lean Muncy just because.
If it's Muncy, for sure. My thing is, I think we see a better series here from Jazz Chisholm. I truthfully believe the cold weather has really hurt his play, and that is the one benefit of playing the Dodgers. He'll get to play in warm weather for 4 games if it goes that far, but the first 2 especially, they have a lot of righty arms too, so I think the matchup is there for Jazz to be better. That said, I would still take Muncy over him, but I don't want it to be like Jazz sucks. I don't think he's going to suck in this series.
Yeah, Muncy really turned it on towards the end of that Mets series, but look, I happen to really think Jazz's ceiling is higher. So I am going Jazz strictly off of the ceiling that you're going to get out of him. I think this is a guy who wants the spotlight. He's a lot like Tatis in that sense, where he wants the spotlight. He's going to play big games, and, he's one of those guys who's going to give you a moment. Like, you're not – all of these big games – other guys have stepped up. You haven't really needed Jazz to have that moment just yet, and it's coming. And Jazz is going to step up, whether it's later in this series. I could see it being in a game 5 or 6, one of those decisive moments, especially because you're going to see a lot of bullpen from this Dodgers team that has one lefty in it, in Bonda. That's it.
So leaning Muncy there, that kind of brings us now to the outfield. Left field seems like it's Teoscar Hernandez's job versus Alex Verdugo.
It's closer than it seems because Verdugo brings a lot better fielding, but you have to go Teoscar.
Teoscar Hernandez isn't a slouch out there in the field either. It's not like he's going to be a detriment to you. But really, up until Game 6, Teoscar Hernandez was hitless in that Mets series, and I think that shouldn't be overlooked either. He did break out a little bit. I think his sheer power and consistency with that power is what makes him more dangerous for this Yankee team, or for this Dodger team, rather. So I lean Teoscar.
I mean, I feel like it's got to be just because he's a bigger threat with the bat. But as we stand now, Dodgers have the edge at catcher. We're a push at first base. They have an edge at shortstop, third base, now left field. We gave Glaber that edge at second. Center field, he said, Podges has kind of broke out, but how do you root against Judge? How do you not give Judge that edge?
I mean, this is, that's not even a conversation.
It's this MVP. Is like the DH conversation. Sorry, Stanton. Like, it's the same thing there.
So now we go to right field, and I feel like this is a push.
I would take Juan Soto over Mookie Betts currently.
I would too, but I wouldn't disrespect Mookie.
I'm not
just because
disrespecting
they
him.
before.
I'm not. I mean, hold on. I'm not disrespecting him by taking a guy who's top 5 in MLB
Or
over him.
discredit it, I guess would be
Just
the better word.
what Juan Soto brings to the plate, and he plays a short right field in New York. The fielding, obviously, you lean Mookie, but I don't know how much the fielding's really going to be a factor in this series. And what Juan Soto brings to the plate right now is a better hitter than Mookie Betts throughout the postseason and just in general. I would lean Juan Soto over Mookie Betts pretty enough to not say it's a push on my end.
Yeah, I mean, look, Yankee Stadium, right field does make a difference playing there, but to be honest with you, I don't think this is a push, Corey. I think this is Juan Soto, and to be honest with you, I'm going to ask you guys this, and correct me if I'm wrong. This is not the same Mookie Betts that we saw before he signed that huge contract, correct? Would you say that version of Mookie Betts is a little bit different? Was a little bit better? Yeah, that's the version of Juan Soto we're dealing with right now. So it's not, they're not comparable. Juan Soto is playing the best baseball of his life, and this is a guy who has already won a World Series. It's very easy to forget that. So, while trying not to bash Mookie or anything, it's no disrespect to him. It's the same thing where it's no disrespect to Pajes over there in center field. Aaron Judge is the best right now in center field, and Juan Soto is right behind him. The only difference is Mookie Betts is the one who's protecting Shohei Ohtani. Aaron Judge, in a sense, is protecting Juan Soto in that lineup.
True.
So I think that alone says a lot about Juan Soto, because to be quite honest with you, they are basically saying, look, Judge, he doesn't even need protection because he's going to figure it out. He's going to get his home runs no matter what. Soto needs his protection. Mookie Betts, on the other hand, he wasn't coming through all the time for the Dodgers. And there's a reason why the Yankees duo of Judge and Soto has been talked about significantly more than Betts and Ohtani.
I mean, John, which one are you choosing?
I almost want to say a push like you, but Juan Soto has just like I said, just controls the strike zone so well. But Mookie Betts is the better defender, so I mean, I guess you can go a push, but I mean, if you're going off, I think it's just like you're looking for offense, Soto, defense, Betts.
All right, now if you go to DH, Ben thinks it's pretty obvious. I think it's also a push because when you need a big hit, I think there's no two better players in the playoffs right now that'll provide it for you. I think if you have runners on second and third and you're down by 2, if you're down by 3, you want both of these guys up.
Yeah, I'm
giving Ohtani's done. I mean, Stanton's also been just as incredible this postseason.
I'm giving the slight edge to Ohtani because he's a factor on the base paths.
That's fair. But
Ohtani is a significant factor on the base paths. And to be honest with you, Ohtani's winning MVP as just a DH.
John?
I just feel like if you factor in like what they're both doing in the postseason, I feel like this is probably one of the more true pushes we've had. That I can agree that they're probably both pretty similar there, and who you want. Like I think in like one area where one beats it, I think in another area, you have an edge there. I mean,
Ohtani was batting like 800 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
He's literally only getting hits with runners on base.
Yeah,
how you stop that? Don't let runners get on base in front of him.
Well, or the fact that, I mean, and this was very interesting because, Dave Roberts was on Colin Cowherd's show prior to Game 3. And, Colin Cowherd, a guy who doesn't watch baseball at all, asks him, well, if Shohei Ohtani is only hitting with runners on base, why do you leave him in the leadoff hole? So I think that is an interesting thing when someone who doesn't watch baseball is sitting there and asking Dave Roberts that. Now, I will give Dave Roberts this. He had a pretty good answer, and it's because he can guarantee Shohei Ohtani is going to get 5 at-bats if he's hitting in the leadoff spot, not getting 5 at-bats if he's hitting 3.
Also, Shohei Ohtani, huge factor on the base path. open up the game with him getting on first
Well,
steal.
and when you have Mookie and Freeman right behind him, it is a big difference.
I just feel like the runner in scoring position stat is just such a weird stat because if you look at like who's in front of Stanton, like I mean, like how is he going to hit anyone in when you have like Soto and I think what is it Judge ahead of him in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean they.
Hit it, I mean, I'm just saying,
He's
like,
always hitting with guys in scoring position. So
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like if they're clearing the bases, and Stan's coming up with no one on bases. I mean, I don't know.
it was pretty rare in the Guardian series that bases were cleared, and it wasn't because of a Jazz double play.
Right. Well, now let's go to the starting pitching side of things. Flaherty, Buehler, Yamamoto, and bullpen
I'll take the team with 4 starting pitchers.
versus Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, Heel, with now a possible Nestor and Stroman also possibilities. You got to go the team that can have 4+, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to rank them, you'd go Cole, Rodon as 1, 2. Then you'd go Flaherty, in my opinion, and again, and the Yankees have 4, maybe 5 if Nestor's back.
I would say you have 5 with Stroman back as well.
I mean, Bowman has been unwilling to use him, even in like longer like bullpen sessions. Like he's clearly on that roster to eat innings if there's a blowout.
Look, I think the big thing with the Yankees here is yes, they have the edge starting pitching wise, and that's what everyone was saying heading into that Mets series was if they can use their starting pitching, they will win. And I think that the Yankees have a bullpen as well that is right there with the Dodgers. The Mets didn't have the bullpen depth that the Dodgers did. I think
Mets
that's
have 2 guys, right? That's it, Stanek and Diaz, that you really trusted.
No, honestly, it was yeah. I mean, Buto, he lost his steps. It felt like, but Stanek was trusted, but even he started getting roughed up. Diaz was trusted. He got hit around a bit. Especially come that Dodger series, there really wasn't a single guy you trusted going in. You really felt like it was Maton was a guy you can lean on a bit. Stanek was solid. Reed Garrett was someone that they did lean on pretty heavily, but with starters not going long, he was into the game a lot earlier than you would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of takes us into that relief pitcher part where the Yankees have Cousins, Leiter, Weaver, Hill, and Canely, and even Holmes, if you want to go that far, that they've trusted in big spots, and they've all succeeded. The only reliever on that roster I kind of left off was Tim Meza, who I don't trust in the slightest, and I do think he gets left off for a possible Nestor addition to the roster.
Yeah.
Which I think that's another arm that will get used. Nestor isn't just a mop-up guy. Nestor can pitch in relief. He's done it before, and he can give you 2, 3, even 4 innings if you really need it. And he can play really well out of that bullpen spot where Stroman has struggled in his career out of the bullpen.
Yeah, what I'll say is, in terms of Yankee relievers, Weaver, Canely, and Hill, those are the guys that I certainly trust the most. Clay Holmes, if it's not the 9th inning or later, sure, fire him up. And I thought Mark Leiter Jr. played pretty well in a small sample size, but in that game 5, I thought he was pretty huge. That's 5 guys that I'm comfortable without the bullpen, and 3 that I'm really happy with. Canely has a 0 ERA in the playoffs. Tim Hill has, a 1.59, and I don't even think that was his fault completely. And Weaver has been the best closer in the playoffs.
I mean, even Jake Cousins, I feel how he pitched those last game, the end of that series really stepped up big, where he's not somebody I'm going to be too upset if I see him come out of the pen. I think he can handle this team pretty well.
I just don't think I'd want Cousins top of the 8th facing Ohtani, Betts, Freeman.
No. I kind of put Cousins and Leiter in that they should be able to eat innings, in the 5th, the 6th. They can give you 2 innings each, which I think is really big. Like I said earlier, Canely, Hill, Weaver, Leiter, Cousins, even Holmes are all capable of getting more than 3 outs. They can go 4+. They can go 2 innings.
Here's the thing with the Yankee bullpen, and I think this is where, you're going to struggle because you're actually going to see a lineup that's going to make you work the way the Yankees do. I mean, the Yankees, they grind guys, and the Dodgers do not swing at pitches out of the zone similar to the way the Yankees do. I think a guy like Canely, who relies very heavily on that changeup, is going to, not have as smooth of a time against this Dodger lineup. And then you have a guy like Tim Hill, who is going to be crucial for the Yankees. I mean, Tim Hill might be the most important reliever in this series for the Yankees because you are going to need a lefty to get through Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. And that means you're going to need a lefty who can get Betts out. And that's where you're going to run into some trouble.
And that's where Nestor could come into
That's
play.
exactly where Nestor comes in and not Tim Mesa.
Well, Tim Hill.
No. Tim Mesa would be the other lefty.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, you're going to need a lefty for late leverage innings, and it's going to be Tim Hill who gets the nod first.
Right, it's Tim Hill that gets the nod first, but you need more than one lefty, and that's why Nestor would be so important because it takes off that pressure from Tim Hill because Nestor can pitch in the 8th inning and get these guys out. I am confident that Nestor, has that capability. He's shown it in the past, so I think that takes a lot of exposure away from Hill where they can kind of alternate that big leverage situation. And 2, I think it just helps lengthen the bullpen even more where you have 2 lefties now that you can really trust to get these big outs.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the Dodgers, I think the biggest issue you're going to find for them in their bullpen is the fact that they're just going to be asked to do significantly more. There's 2 games in this series. The Dodgers are going to have to do bullpen games. And the reason they set it up this way is to try and rest that bullpen in between games with starters. But I just think it's wild to me that, they're going to be perfectly content doing a bullpen game for game 2 and game 5 in this series.
So which team do you give the edge when it comes to bullpen then?
So for me, it is the Yankees, and it's going to be because of usage because, the Dodgers, their starters are not going to be – they're going to give them 4-5 innings at most. So their bullpen is going to be asked to get them 4 to 5 innings, on their starters' days. Then they're going to have to turn around and throw 9 innings in other games. And the Yankees, unlike the Mets, have a lot more power and punishing ability in their lineup.
And discipline.
And this
significantly more discipline.
This was the big reason that I know myself and I think maybe Corey preferred the Dodgers. The right-handed pitching, that is the Yankees' bread and butter all year. With the Mets, you had Manaea, you had Quintana, you had lefty starters that could eat up innings against the Yankees lineup and really give them fits. The Dodgers just don't have that starters or in the pen.
It's tough. So that kind of brings us to who we think's going to win, how many games, and who is your prediction for World Series MVP. So let's kind of start with John, who's the most removed at this point from the World Series. Sorry, John.
I'm going to go with the Yankees win in 6 because I just think overall, I think if you look at the team overall, I think, they have very similar, when it comes to bats. But I think the Yankees have the edge pitching-wise, and I think they just have better pitching overall, especially in starting pitching, and that's really important. And, in this series and stuff in the playoffs. So I'm gonna go they win in 6, and I'm gonna say MVP Soto.
All right, Ben, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm sticking with the Yankees as well. I think the Yankees are going to win this series, and I think it's going to come down to the fact that the Yankees have overall pitching depth. I think the Dodgers bullpen is eventually going to be taxed the way you saw Manaea was, to be honest with you. Sean Manaea in his final start, he just didn't have the gas. He hit a wall at the end of his start in game 2. And, I think this Dodger bullpen is eventually going to feel that same heat. It's too much pressure. I think that the Dodgers also then are going to be forced to win games that their starters are throwing. And You saw Flaherty is flawed. Flaherty's had 2 starts where he's gotten roughed up a bit. Yamamoto has had a start where he's gotten bounced around a bit. Bueller has had a start where he's been bad. So it's not like the Dodgers have the consistency that the Yankees have. And to be quite honest with you, I think that, for the Yankee starters and, Rodon especially, Rodon's going to have a field day with this Dodger team. And, look, he knows plenty of the Dodgers. He's seen them plenty recently, before he headed to the Yankees. So this is a guy who's had success. He's been with teams that have, done very well against the Dodgers. And, I think that the Yankees ultimately, their pitching is going to do what everyone was thinking that the Mets starting pitching was going to do. The Yankees have more depth. The Yankees have a better bullpen. They're going to be able to get this done.
How many and who's going to be the MVP?
So I think the Yankees are going to get this done in 7. I do think that the Dodgers are going to claw out and win at least one slugfest because their lineup, while it may not be as top-heavy and good at the top as the Yankees with Judge and Soto, I think Judge and Soto are better than Ohtani and whoever you want to put next to him. But the Dodgers have a bit more depth in the lineup, and that's going to help them out. I think the Dodgers win a couple. They are able to steal 1 in New York, but the Yankees are going to ultimately end up winning 2 in LA, and that's going to send them home with their 28th ring.
Who's your
And
World Series?
for MVP, who but Aaron Judge? I think he's going to be the big guy here. He's going to hit some big home runs, and it's his turn. We saw Stanton do it in the LCS. We saw Judge finally break through early on in the DS. So, look, it's going to be Aaron Judge. This is his World Series. This is his time. And to be honest with you, I think this is where Aaron Judge shows that he is a better hitter and a more impactful player than Shohei Ohtani.
All right, Dylan.
I don't know if how this is gonna come across, but I'm taking the Yankees, of course. I actually think they get it done in 5. I think that the Yankees are able to beat up on the Dodgers starting pitchers, and the Yankees have the bullpen to hold off and win games. It's kind of what we saw them do against the Guardians. They get to attack early and they're able to hold off. And in fact, the bats got better as that Guardian series went on. The Yankees showed that they have the ability to have timely hitting, which is something that we haven't seen in years from this squad. I think they're able to get people on base, and I think they're able to capitalize early and often in these games, especially in LA. The warm weather, the ball is going to fly. I do think that does favor New York. I think that their hitters are able to play well, and I'm going with Giancarlo Stanton to continue just a magical October run. The Yankees are going to have guys on for him, and I think he makes the Dodgers pay and give Big G the MVP here.
Who do I pick? I think this game goes 7. I think it's a 7-game series. I think Dylan and I will be, needing to be hooked up in a hospital bed by the end of this because it is going to destroy our hearts. I think the Yankees do win in 7, but it will be, heart attack inducing. The blood pressure is going to shoot through the roof. I think it's not going to be as offensively, big as the Mets-Dodgers series. I don't think we see any real blowouts. I think these teams really keep it close. But my MVP for the Yankees would be Garrett Cole because he's going to pitch games 1, 4, and 7 and dominate because this is what you signed Garrett Cole for. This is what Garrett Cole came to the Yankees to do. This is going to be Garrett Cole's defining moment in his career where he just dominates games 1, 4, and 7, and the Yankees win this World Series on the back of their ace.
I'm almost half surprised you didn't pick the Dodgers, considering how much you went against the Yankees. Like
they finally made them believe. They finally made them believe.
That's the thing. Like I really didn't believe up until that Soto home run.
Yeah, I hope Soto wins MVP, but I think that Glaber and Soto get on enough for Stanton and Judge and set the table really, really well. And
I do have a dark horse MVP candidate.
Is it Jazz? That's mine.
It's Jazz.
Yeah, mine is Jazz. They're all the righty pitching, and he'll be warm and comfortable in LA.
I think he's capable of just going on an amazing hot streak.
Yeah, if he gets hot, that could be the Yanks in 5.
All right. So Yanks in 6 for John, Yanks in 7 for Ben, Yanks in 5 for Dylan, Yanks in 7 for me. It's going to be really embarrassing if the Yanks don't pull this off. But the
I
Yankees,
mean, we don't need to be embarrassed. How could we pick against our own team in the World Series? That would be embarrassing.
not even I could go that far.
No,
But
I can't root for the Dodgers.
I mean, I'll just be really, really sad.
Is America consensusly rooting for the Yankees in a World Series? I kind of think they are.
I think they're rooting for a meteor to strike.
Did you see
But
that? The
Dylan,
map
do
they
you plan
made?
on going to any of these games coming down to the Bronx?
Oh, well, no, I'm not a millionaire. Maybe if I donate a kidney for a ticket.
The way I'm justifying it is I have an Otani future that's going to net me $1,000. So at that point, that's what I'd rather put that money into instead of betting it on some other stuff that's just going to lose. Withdraw it from that FanDuel and just have myself a time. Right now, it's looking like Game 4 is the game I'm targeting. So
Yeah, I want to
Yankees
see
in 4,
Coltrane on the mound.
Yankees in
Yankees
4.
in, I said 5. 5 might be the one to target.
But yeah, I couldn't do Game 3. Giants are on that night. It's gonna be.
Yeah, that's the reason you couldn't do Game 3. The Giants are on. Come on.
I'm still a fan.
You just want to watch them lose?
They're playing the Steelers. Let Russ cook. But I think Game 4 is going to be a really fun one. It's also the one that had the cheapest tickets that I saw. So that plays into it. But these ticket prices are insane. I'm not going to want to look at my bank account for a while after I make that purchase. Maybe work a bit of overtime or whatever it is. But that's going to do it here for us. Yankees are in the World Series. Next time we speak, the World Series will still be going on, but we'll have an idea of how this series stands. It starts Friday the 25th. We're going to, Game 7 would be a week after on that Saturday, so we'll talk before then, hopefully talking about how the Yankees are dominating and we think they could clinch.
I mean,
So
we'll see.
We'll see. Ben Mandel, John Pauline, Dylan Mel, Corey Jason signing off here. Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Let's go Yankees.